رب رحيم مشفق.
Assalamu alaikum rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. It's good for me to be with you today. I've been very, very excited about this episode today because we are getting deeper and deeper into the study of Dawah Ilallah. And perhaps, inshallah, somebody has loaded them onto YouTube or something and you can go watch them there. But get the early episodes because you need to have an idea of the framework that we are building around this series. The purpose of this introductory section, it will go in a few weeks, is to build the structure of what Dawah Ilallah actually is. Once that is over, we'll get more interactive, we'll get some of your comments from home, we'll get some comments from the studio, and then we'll deal with them, inshallah, as we go along. So what we said last week as we were looking at is how the messenger of Allah was sent with a message that would lead people out of darkness and into the light. And we said how simple the terminologies that Allah uses for humankind so that everybody will understand what they mean. When they translate it into German, you understand what they mean. When they translate it in English, you understand what it means. When they remain in the Arabic, which it should be, then you understand what it means. Beautiful language that is used by Allah to communicate to mankind. And this is why we know that this is not a book written by man, that it can only be the hand of the divine. Man has got too much pride and arrogance and self-centeredness to let a simple concept remain simple. He wants to make things complicated. A friend of mine said in South Africa, Musai Dawud, he's one of my teachers, he said, touch your ear. So I looked at him and I said, okay. He said, why did you touch your ear like that? Why didn't you do this? You see, some of us want to complicate things. And this is the human tendency. Well, Allah just makes things simple for us to understand. And this is why the religion of Islam so easy for people to grasp and accept once we reveal it to them. So the message of Islam is to present who Allah is. Once they've understood who Allah is and will start showing an interest in who Allah is, then we give them the Quran. The Quran will lead them into a further and deeper understanding of that. So today we are going to continue with the book, Dawah Ilallah, and we're going to move on to the next section, which is dealing with the duties of the Muslim Ummah, or while the Prophet Muhammad was sent. So let's continue with the text now.
One cannot fail to note that after describing the three categories of men, the first call which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives is for His own worship. O mankind, worship your Lord who created you and who were before you.
Jazakallah khair. So what we see from this text is that Allah Ta'ala sent the message to mankind for us to understand that we need to acknowledge Allah. We need to worship Allah. And this understanding of worship has often been misunderstood by our atheist friends. They say again, Allah must have an inferiority complex. Why does He need to be worshipped? Only a God who has an inferiority complex would need to be worshipped. What is an inferiority complex? It means that you don't think you're good enough. That's a human trait again. Remember, when we try to apply human qualities to God, we will always be confused. So why do we worship? Let's have a look at worship. This computer, this laptop, whatever you want to call it, in whatever country you have a different term for it or whatever, but this device that is in front of me, it has a plug coming here and a power cable. If I pull this power cable out, it won't last very long. Eventually, it will run out and it will run flat and it will cease to work. If I put the power supply back in, it's receiving more information. What does electricity get from the computer? Nothing. What does the computer get from the electricity? Everything. So worship is a one-way stream. When we praise Allah, we walk away different. We walk away changed. Allah remains exactly the same. He's not affected. If every single human being on planet Earth ceased to pray and ceased to worship, does Allah disappear? You see, in old pagan times, they used to have a concept. If you pray to the God lives. If you don't pray to the God dies. And so this is what used to happen. Zeus and Apollo and all the gods that they had all died because the people stopped believing in them and they stopped worshipping them. That's a pagan concept. So the understanding within Christianity and Buddhism and Hinduism is somehow that some God is going to get more powerful if we all worship him. That's not going to happen. In Islam, the concept of worship is not like that concept. So the atheist who tries to put a human quality onto Islam's understanding of worship is because they don't understand our form of worship is different. When we talk about worship, it's not Allah that's getting anything from the deal. It's us that get something from the deal. We walk away transformed and changed and charged and different people. So worshiping Allah is of benefit to you and me. Praising Allah is of benefit to you and me. It's not of any benefit to God. It's not of any benefit to Allah. So if all of humanity started to worship Allah, it still doesn't change him. His law will remain the same. You know, some people believe that they can bribe God. In some religions, you know, if I do this, then I can bribe my way into his good books. If it is written, it is written. Nothing is going to change. If something is halal, it will remain halal for the whole of humanity, not going to change for you. And if it's haram for the whole of humanity, it's not going to change for you. You can't bribe your way into the good books. So in Islam, the concept of worship is very different. How's worship done in Islam? Here's question time. How's worship in Islam? The participants here can answer this. What are the ways that we can worship in Islam? What are some of the ways?
Each and every activity which we do the whole 24 hours, according to our Prophet ﷺ, is worship.
Everything we do is worship. So it's not just going and sitting in a lotus position on top of a mountain going, now I'm feeling that worship position. Huh? Or the Christian going, swinging backwards and forwards, going, now I'm in the worship, we're going to have praise and worship session. Don't they call it? Praise and worship session. You're getting into the zone. Get into the zone. It's like a gym instructor. You know, you're in gym, you have that guy say, get into the zone. Move that body, don't give up now. You have to get into the zone. In Islam, we're always in the zone. We're permanently in a state of worship, or we should be. And this is why we have to practice Islam. This is why when we call ourselves Muslims, it means the one who practices Islam. It's not the one who's accomplished Islam. It's not the one who's arrived at Islam. It's the one who practices. So we are constantly practicing to stay in the zone, to keep at it. So worship is very, very different when we explain it to people, because their concept of worship is different. So you need to explain this concept when you're speaking to people, when you're calling to Islam. What worship is. How important Dawah Ilallah is. You see how important it is when we call people to Islam, that we explain concept after concept after concept, because they have a different understanding. The best people to bring to Islam are who? Who would be the easiest people to bring to Islam? Christians? Anyone else? Atheists. Why are the atheists the easiest? Because they believe that there is no God and it's easier for them to accept. That's what they believe. Half of the Shahada is there already. But the other nice thing about an atheist is he hasn't got any nonsense. There's no preconceived ideas there. You don't have to take out the ideas of what he understands worship. You don't have to take his ideas of what he thinks God is, because he's got no idea. He says, I don't know. An atheist is saying, I'm not prepared to say. I don't have enough evidence because everything I read is rubbish. That's what he's saying. And so when you give him Islam and it makes sense, he goes, that makes sense. You don't have to take out all the garbage because he's already got a clear mind, inshallah. So it's easier to work with an atheist because he's already open to understanding with a clear mind. With other people, they've got too much nonsense there that has to be removed, and you have to dig and dig through all the junk before you can actually get to a solid ground where you can build the foundations that are required. If we were going to build this building, a lot of work went into it. Have you seen when they build a building in a city or a town or whatever? It takes ages before the building goes up. They put the foundations and they have the payloaders that are putting everything. That takes like half a year. But when they put the building above it, it takes like this. In a month, it's over. You go, but why did it take so long? Because the foundations are that important. You have to dig out all the nonsense before you can put down a solid foundation. And that's what happens when someone comes to Islam. You spend months and months and months, perhaps even years, removing all those misconceptions before you can lay the cement down for a solid foundation of Tawheed. Then you can build quickly. So this is why the concept of Dawah Ilallah is so important. If we get that foundation right, the building will go up very quickly, inshallah. So we see in this text here that the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ gave the message to mankind to call people to trust and worship Allah, to put their faith in Allah, to put their all in Allah, to throw everything. It's all or nothing. And so it says in the text, mankind was worshipped to worship their Lord who created you and who was before you. Sometimes we have this idea that there was a beginning for Allah. Allah was before us. He was always. There is no starting point. I remember as a Christian, I was going to write a book about how God came into being. Can you believe it? I was going to write a book. I had started writing the first chapter of how God came into being. That's it. How can you do such a thing? Astaghfirullah, that we can even think of such a thing. That's how your brain works, because in Christianity it doesn't make sense. If Jesus has a beginning and the Holy Spirit has a beginning, well, it's just logical that God has to have a beginning. So in Islam we know that Allah has no beginning. There's no need to be a beginning for a being that is not limited to time, shape, space, or form. If we have to limit him to human understanding of, when I'm talking about our limitations, we can't have concepts like humans have. We understand that there are narrations where it talks about him reaching out his hand. We don't understand how that is. It is exactly the same way as we do. But he obviously has. He is God. He can. But we're not in the same way as we have hands and shapes and forms. We have to take a break. When we get back from the break, we'll continue on that thought, inshallah. Assalamu alaikum rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, and welcome back. We are continuing with our look at the concept of Dawah Ilallah and how we can present it. Now, I said before the break that from what we've learned so far is that when we're talking to people, we have to understand that Allah was before everything. He never had a beginning. He has always been. He is self-sufficient. He has no needs. And sometimes we have texts where it says that Allah reaches out his hands or he moves towards us. And so there's that idea of having hands or reaching out, and we can get very bogged down by that. We can have huge debates and someone says, well, according to the text, he has hands. We're getting bogged down by human concepts. You know, I have lots of fish at home. I'm crazy about animals. I have lots of animals. I believe in being kind to animals, but I won't have any big animals in my home because I just think it's cruel. But I have fish. I have lots of fish from all different countries. I've got fish from Germany. I've got fish from America. I've got fish from Russia. I've got from all different countries, legally. So these fish that I have, I often wonder if they have conversation about me and they have discussions with each other. Like imagine when you're feeding fish and some of the Christian fish are at the top of the tank and they say, we know exactly what a human is. He's 3 fingers, because when he's feeding, we see 3 fingers, and that's what a human is. And there's some other fish in the middle and they say, no. A human is a hand, because when he cleans the fish tank on the inside, we see this hand moving around cleaning the side of the tank. That is what a human is. And then there's some Jewish fish at the bottom there, and they said, well, we don't know because we got taken from that tank to that tank, and we got this whole like taking through the air thing and put into this other tank. We don't know how it happened. It's very, very weird, but you don't have to believe us. Could be, couldn't be, whatever you want to believe. But something weird happened. And so they have their explanation. Then you got the Muslims at the bottom saying, does it matter? God is greater than everything. Don't even get bogged down with all that. He's feeding us, am I right? He's cleaning the tank, am I right? You're getting everything that you want, am I right? That's what they're happy with. So we can look and we can philosophize and we can debate and we can argue. But instead of getting distracted by all that, let's move ahead and understand that he is not confined to our space. He's not confined to a form. He's not confined to a shape. One of the problems that Christians have is when they talk about the post-resurrection, where Jesus was supposed to have been crucified, where he's supposed to have been laid in a tomb for 3 days, and then he was resurrected and then he was raised up into heaven after the crucifixion. It says that he was raised up into the heavens, which means God has an abode. He lives in a house. He has a place where he lives. And that is very, very dangerous, because that means he is not a God. Do you know that? That means that your God has to have a place to live. He's confined to an area. Where is this area? In the Bible, we don't know. Is it another heaven? Is it paradise? Is it above the heavens? Is it in the heavens? Where is it? He's got an abode. And this is very dangerous. What about what happened to him 3 days that he was neither in heaven or neither on earth? Where did God exist? Did he exist between space? Did he exist in hell? Because some people say that, a lot of Christian theologians say that Jesus went to hell for 3 days. We had to go to hell for 3 days to take the sins of mankind. What is hell? What is hell according to Christians? Hell is where God is not. So think about what that means. It means God, because they think Jesus is God, is no longer God for 3 days. Imagine a world without God for 3 days. It would cease to exist. There would be nothingness. So God, who is God, became not God in the place where God is not, and then came out of the place where God is not to become God again. It's very bad salesmanship. As long as no one's going to buy this. I mean, when you look at it, you're not what I'm going to sign on the dotted line for. So it's not well thought. It's human thinking again. So we understand from Quran that Allah existed before everything existed. So we don't get into all the long details and things like that. We just explain that Allah has always existed. Okay, next point, we go on with the book again and see what the writer has continued to say to help us understand a little bit more about how to do Dawah Ilallah.
One also should note that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala assigns the same duties to Muslim Ummah which were assigned to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. The Prophet was sent to witness the truth, and now this responsibility rests with the Ummah, as it is the successor of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. That the messenger may be a witness over you, and you be the witness over mankind.
Jazakallah khair. Okay, let's just go that far and we can look at this. You see, the writer has written, he says, Allah has assigned the same duties to the Muslim Ummah that is now, as those that were assigned to the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. What was the message? To call people to truth, to be a warner, to tell them that there will be a day of recompense, there will be a day of accounting, that they need to come out of darkness and into the light, that Allah has always existed. We have been given that great honor. We have been made lieutenants. Imagine if you're in the military. I did my military service for 2 years. I was forced in my country. And for 6 months I was chased around, told, you can sleep, you must be awake, you must stand up, you must lie down. You don't have a mother, you don't have a father, I am your mother, I am your father. That's what they do in the military. They break you down. And this man who was walking around with a star on his shoulder, I had to do everything he told me. Then after 6 months I did an officer's course, and I was one of those guys walking around with a star, and I was telling him, you're not allowed to sleep, you're not allowed to do this, you're not allowed, you have no mother, you have no father. See, I got the same honor as that. And I reflected, almost I was emulating the person who came before me. Even though when I was doing it, I said, I hate that man. Never want to do that. But it's the military way. It's to break you down and build you up into something. But we've been given an honor, not like the military, but an absolute honor, to be the ambassador of the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ on planet Earth. To take the same message. I don't even have words for how great this offer is that we've been given. Imagine, we've been given the same duty to be able to go out and give the message of Allah to mankind. It's not a task, it's a privilege. It's something we should be waving the banner with and be so proud that we have the opportunity to do that. In South Africa, I don't know if you guys had it in your countries, but we had Rose Day. A Rose Day. Remember the Rose Day? We gave out roses on the street. And we had these young men would go out onto the street and they'd take buckets of white roses and they'd have a little card. It was a dawah effort. It's a worldwide dawah effort that was done. And you'd have a little card and on it would be an ayah from the Quran or a hadith. And then we'd just give it to somebody on the street. As people walk past on a Saturday or Sunday, or it was a Saturday afternoon, just give it to them for free. And they were amazed. They got this beautiful, high quality, good quality rose with a nice little card on it, small little card. That was all, soft dawah. And it was a way to give the message to people, the honor of being able to give a soft message of dawah. You know, these are ways that we can go out and give the message of Islam to people that we meet around us. And so this honor has been given to this ummah. This ummah has got that honor of being able to take the same message. It might be difficult in the beginning, but after you get used to it, it becomes second nature. You find an excuse. I am the worst in the world to go with. You don't want to go anywhere with me. Because everywhere I go, I look for an opportunity to start a conversation. It's good. I mean, I love it. But other people go, oh, please, can't you just leave people alone? My brother actually says to me, do you always have to be in da'i mode? He literally says that. Because sometimes it can be a bit much for people. Because you go there and you look for an opportunity, an opening. Anything is an opening. Like you're standing in a shopping center and there's a trolley in front of you or someone's got a basket. I look in their trolley to find something that I can open a dialogue with. Like Oh, I see you've got a lot of healthy food. And they go, yeah, I see, yeah, nice healthy food. Yeah, good to eat properly. You know, in the Quran, it talks about healthy eating. Now, you look for an opportunity in everything. It can be a child playing with a car. You will talk about something. You look for every opportunity in everything. We've been given this honor. It's not something that you need to look at as a burden. It should be second nature. You should be looking at every opportunity. I've got the waiters at the hotel that I'm staying at saying, Inshallah, Assalamu alaikum, Alhamdulillah. They're not even Muslims. It becomes contagious. The people around you want to start talking like you if you're doing it the nice way, you're doing it in the right way. So we've got a whole lot of Hindu guys walking around saying, Inshallah, Assalamu alaikum, Bismillah, Alhamdulillah. So if we're giving the right message, they might never become Muslims. At least they've got a better respect for Islam. We don't have to give them the entire message of Islam, but at least drop something. Plant some good seeds there. If you are a bad da'i, and you say to the person that you see, and they come to you and say, oh, you're Muslim, and you say, well, what's it to you? Do you know what damage you have done to that person? You make it difficult for the people that come afterwards to do dawah to that person. So remember what you say when you speak to people. So we have to be cautious of what we say. What are we going to tell that person? We've only got one opportunity. So make sure that opportunity counts. Make sure the message we're giving them is a message that someone else can build upon in the future. Well, time is up again. You're going to have to join us again next week, same place, same time, so we can continue, inshallah. So from us here in the studio and from me, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
رب رحيم مشفق متعطف لا ينتهي بالحصر ما أعطاه رب رحيم مشفق متعطف